Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Today, I'm going to be talking about a more positive aspect of Wizard101 because I feel like for the last little bit I've been talking about the more negative aspects, but there's still positives and we need to still remember the positives, right? Because if you only focus on negatives your entire life, you're just going to live a very sad life. You need to focus on the positives. So what do I mean by this? The more defeatist players will be like, there's no positives in Wizard101 anymore, and then they'll be like, this game hasn't been good for years. You know, stuff like that. But I'm here to tell you that honestly right now the game realistically is in a better state than it has been in years. Now obviously there's still pay issues and pay to win, pay to play, whatever, all that stuff. Whatever your opinion is on that, don't really care. But I think the more important thing to note is how the gameplay has changed over the years, because man, has the gameplay changed over the years. I don't know if some of you realize just how much Wizard101 has changed, and for the better, over the last few years. So let's go over some of those changes now. Starting off with... what do I want to start off with? Let's start off with a change for death. And this was a change made like 4 years ago at this point. I'm gonna go from earliest to latest. A change made like 4 years ago or so. That basically made it so that healback spells, such as like Vampire, Wraith, whatever, Dr. Von's Monster, Scarecrow, they changed it so that the enchants on them went from doing half effectiveness to full effectiveness. So what that means is, Scarecrow, which by the way back then only had like 400 base damage, wouldn't have gone up to 675 with the Colossal. It would have went up to about 530 something, 532 or something. And the reason for that is that I think KingsIsle viewed the healback as being enough to warrant the enchants doing half. So what that meant is that Death was severely underpowered in a lot of cases. To be honest, I think Death was one of the worst schools in the game. It was really bad. I think, like, at that point, even Myth was a little bit better than it, to be honest, because realistically, most of its spells, besides spells like King Artorias, Skeletal Dragon, Skeletal Pirate, those kind of things, except for spells like that, Death's spells were all really, really underpowered. And I mean, it was definitely a tragic thing. Like, I think most schools were better than Death, and that has changed significantly, where I think now Death is one of the best schools in the entire game. But that has to do with not just the enchant thing, but the next update that improved the game drastically, and that is the massive spell audit that went into effect last year. Now, I know people have mixed feelings on it. Some people dislike it, whatever. I imagine most of those are Storm Wizards who are still butthurt about glow bugs. But, as we all know, Storm Wizards' opinions don't matter. So, that's a joke. That's a joke. If you're a Storm Wizard, I'm sorry. It's just that Moon School is better than Storm. Let's go over some of the changes. First off, Tier 7 spells were drastically revamped. Most of them got an improvement, got a more damage. For example, one of the best ones was actually Scarecrow. Scarecrow went from doing like 400 base damage to doing 590. That is insane for Death. Death jumped up just from that alone to one of the best schools in the game, because Scarecrow is one of the best spells in this game at this point, which is really, really cool. Fire's Fire Dragon got a buff. Stormlord got a buff. I really think the only one that didn't get a buff was Frost Giant for Ice. Now, another important thing to note is that Myth in the spell audit was changed rather drastically for a few reasons. One, Orthrus. Orthrus now is a hit all, a 7-pip tier 7 hit all, which is really, really good. That makes them automatically a much better school, because they didn't have a tier 7 hit all spell. Their best hit all spell was like probably Earthquake. And if you look at Earthquake, it only does 370 base damage. That's not a lot of damage. Bill Swift cries somewhere every time he thinks about Earthquake. But it's important to note that Myth was changed drastically from this update. They completely changed Myth. Myth, similar to Death in that update I was talking about, shot up in regards to being one of the better schools in this game. I think now Myth and Death are like 2 or 3 spots higher than what they were before. But that is just one other change. One change I would like to say that also improved the game is adding Rat Spin and Ship of Fools. Now, obviously, Ship of Fools you still can't get without paying a shit ton of money, which is tragic, but Rat Spin you can now, or you can have always been able to get it for free. You just need to craft it. And I think this changed life and death, like, for the better by a drastic amount, because every other school had a 4-pip hit all, except for them. Now they have a 4-pip hit all as well, and both of those schools rose to be, like, significantly better in regard to, you know, attack capabilities. Before, they would have to wait for their 7-pip spell, and then hit with their 7-pip spell. Which leads me into the next point, which is the spell animation update. I don't know if people realize, until now, how long the old spell animations were. Meteor Strike, Fire Dragon, all of the tier 4, tier 7 spells used to take so much long compared to now. A Meteor Strike nowadays takes about 5 seconds total with its animation. If there was 4 enemies, it would have taken 15 upwards. And that's Meteor Strike alone, which is one of the faster animations. Why specifically this relates to tier 7 is, man, was, what's the name of that spell? Oh, the tier 7 life spell. Why can't I remember it? Forest Lord. Forest Lord had a ridiculously long animation that has now been cut significantly short, which is really, really good for it. I really think that the spell animation change was one of the best updates this game has ever released in its history of updates, to be honest. Just to put it into perspective, right, and this is important to note, I feel like, is that my friend and I were farming Ue in Caramel, right? He drops a lot of the executive rings, all that kind of stuff. We could finish the fight in, you know, like a few minutes, less than a few minutes, right? But without the spell update change, I think that would have lengthened significantly. It would have went from like around 2 minutes per run, a little bit less than that maybe, to like 5 minutes per run. And that is crazy to me, because it's like just the sheer amount that this has shortened a lot of things, especially like Deer Knight. God, Deer Knight was so long, is fantastic. And I honestly think it's one of the best updates King's Isle has added. It would be remiss of me, fancy word there, to not talk about the new Wizard City textures that they've added, because they are really, really good. Realistically, the only reason I play on classic mode is because I like the old music better. Literally, that's the only reason. But you can see it's beautiful. I'm not gonna lie to you and say it's not. I love the new textures. If they could do the new textures with the old music, I would do that 100% of the time. It's just the fact that I just love the old music so much that I cannot turn off classic mode. But you can see it's really, really nice. It's actually crazy sometimes. I forget how beautiful it is now. But the fact that they managed to do this, right, and make it so nice, and now they're probably going to do the same for Crocotopia, really just makes me happy. I'm happy that they're finally updating their game's graphics to make them, you know, up in 2021. I think it really needed it, and I'm really happy that they've done it. So that's one more thing. The characters are also obviously a thing that they've added that's spiced up the game. And let's talk about one more thing that they've added that has drastically changed the game and sped it up and made it just all that much better. I just realized I was already on my fire. I was going to switch to my fire. I'm already there. All right. The last update, and this is the most recent update, is one that I feel like a lot of people haven't found the use of yet, but is really, really, really good. And that is the new group feature. Now, a lot of people might be like, oh, why? Why groups? Well, it's very simple. It's made farming so much better because when you're in a group, if you have a full group, you always go first, which means for a significant amount of bosses and stuff where it's really important to go first or you can one round it, there isn't a chance you're going to get weakened, you're not going to get stunned, all that's because you go first all the time. It's amazing. Also, with groups, is you get bonus drop rate. My friend and I did that quest in Azteca, the Fierce Quetzal one. I don't know if you guys remember that, but in Salt Meadow Swamp, it's notorious for having one of the lowest drop rates, or it did have one of the lowest drop rates, and we collected it first try with a group. It definitely helps, and I think that it's really, really good. I think it's better, and I think it's just a great system. So, that's going to be it for today. Talk for 10 minutes and 50 seconds. Jesus. Let me know what you think about these updates. Do you agree? Are they good? I think that legitimately these have changed the game so much and for the better. Because, like, I don't know if you guys realize, but back in the day, like, even 5 years ago, we would not be able to do the stuff we're able to do today. Like, farming, for example, Uwe, right? My friend and I can do in 2 minutes. That would, without a doubt, have been 5 minutes or longer with the old updates, which is crazy to me. That has been shortened just from spell animations, going first every round, and just legitimately all the updates, which is just great. So, if you agree with me, let me know. What if there was something I missed, let me know in the comments below. Another quality of life change that I missed. Yeah, so thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, like, sub. See you in the next video. Adios.